Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered Truth. If you're new here, thanks for joining us. If you're returning, welcome back. Today's going to be another weekday wake up episode. These episodes are intended to be short and to the point so that you can listen to them on your way to work or whatever you got going on during the day. Okay, so it's just like a little inspirational pick me up. That's what this is. I will also be sharing my personal examples to illustrate the point, as I always do. Thus, the nature of this channel, my unfiltered truth. Okay, so I'm going to be using my favorite book again, Faith in the Valley by Ian Levanzant, and this is going to be about strength and character. You are blessed. It may not look or feel that way right now, but it's true. If you want to know how blessed you are, think back to a situation you thought was right for you and admit how wrong you were. At the time, you may not have realized you were growing. There was no way to know back then that something bigger and better was on the other side of something painful, ugly, uncomfortable. Now look where you are and remember where you were. Realize that where you are right now is not where you are going to be at some time in the near future. Whether you love it or hate it, your current condition is only temporary. Do your best. Do what you can. Give what you have to give. And remember, you are still growing. You are learning. In fact, you are earning new degrees of wisdom. Sure, you have some grief. You will have some fears. You might even have bouts of pain and sadness. However, just around the corner from where you are, you will be able to look back and see how truly blessed you are. Whatever it is, I can do it for now. All right, so there was only one scenario that kept replaying in my mind as I was reading this. Okay, and as much as I try to avoid talking about this, it just keeps coming up. And so there must be a reason for that. So, I prayed before I make every episode. And so here we are, and I'm going to be obedient. Buckle up, buttercup. No. Okay, so anyways, I've shared this story a few times, so I'm just going to kind of speed through. For those people who may not remember or never heard it in the first place, whatever. Okay, so I had some former friends that used to be great friends, so I thought. And we were friends for many years. And we brought our kids up together. We did holidays together, birthday parties, play dates. We did all the things. They went to the same school, the same sports, everything. Okay. And then usually I leave this part out because I don't like to talk about my personal dating life and stuff like that online. But this is part of the story and I've never shared it before and it's relevant. Okay. So everything was cool until somebody took an interest in me. And then they started pursuing me. And I was praying about it because I knew that one of my friends was deeply infatuated with this person. And I also knew that they had never dated and they weren't going to. And that was already a done deal. And I had known this person much longer than I had known my friend because we grew up together since we were young kids, like 8 years old. So this person took an interest in me and, I prayed about it. Lord, what to do because this is about to be hectic because I already know how she feels. And I don't want no problems. I'm not into that. I'm not pressed to have no man in the first place. But you keep putting him in my path and you keep making me feel like I'm interested. And he keeps showing that he's interested and he's doing all the things. And you're showing me all these confirmations. And I don't want to be leading by my own fleshly desires or whatever. Not in a nasty way, y'all. Get your head out the gutter. That's not what I'm talking about. But just, we have our own will and our own things that we want or whatever, right? And if you ever know me in real life, I ain't never been pressed to be in a commitment. Never, not my whole life, okay? Matter of fact, when I was getting married. I low key had a panic attack halfway down the aisle. I was never pressed for that. Okay. So to have somebody come into my life that's doing all the things that, I asked God for, should I be in a relationship, and for it to be someone that I felt so comfortable and safe with and all of that, right? It really made me pause to pray and, put it before God, put it on the altar. Like, if you want this for me, then let it be. If not, then I don't want to, I'm not trying to do this, and I'm definitely not going to try to force it. Harmonious relationships are so important to me. I don't like to be with somebody and then my friends is all weird, or my family is all weird, or whatever. Like, that's not really what I'm into. So, whatever, right? So I tried to go about it the way that I thought I was supposed to go about it, because, and I say I thought because I prayed about it. And what God told me to do was reach out to our other friend, who was our mutual friend, who also happened to be very important in the church. Okay. So I thought that by reaching out to this other friend, who was a mutual friend, that, maybe I would get some guidance on, or some advice or suggestions even on how to move forward, like what to do to try to figure things out and have some peace, right? Um, because he was pursuing and he was doing all the things that needed to be done. Like I said, we've been knowing each other our whole life, so there was no need to have the conversation with family. Like, my parents already knew him, my kids already had a relationship with him. There was nothing to work out in that regard. Literally, the only thing to work out was this situation with my friend, who was deeply infatuated with him, but they had never dated. And from what he said, he was not interested like that, and had already communicated that with her. So it wasn't like he was leading her on. It wasn't like they was creeping in the background and I just didn't know about it, And so my first step was to ask him to deal with it, because this was his little whatever crush person or whatever. So I asked him to deal with it, because I didn't come in with this, he did. So, I asked him to deal with it. It didn't really go so well. So then, I prayed some more, and that's when God told me to reach out to our mutual friend. So I did that. And then we are having the conversation, and mid conversation, her whole body language shifts, and she tells me that she wanted to talk to me anyway, because her friends that she ordered bracelets for, who I have never met, by the way, said that I caused devastation and destruction to their lives, and they wanted to know that I put voodoo on the bracelets. I don't believe in voodoo. I'm sure people do it. I believe that people do it. I have never been afraid of, spell work or anything like that interfering with me or my life, because I trust God and my faith is in God. And, God tells us in all the different ways, like, a curse without cause will not land. Um, we're supposed to put our faith in God and not on things of the earth. We're, there's so many different ways that God tells us that, like, no weapon formed against us will prosper. Like, there's no reason for me to have ever been afraid or, into voodoo at all. That's not something that I even was well versed in. Like, I didn't, of course, I know what anybody else knows, pretty much, and that's about all I know. All right. And I kept it like that on purpose, because I never felt the urge or the need to go down that road. Okay. So I'm aware that people do spells and different things like that or whatever, but that has never been my forte. The long episode that I posted right before this, if you're interested in checking that out, I do talk about integration and transformation, and I talk about reconciling religion with spirituality, and how that even came about. I know a lot of things as far as neuroscience, psychology, philosophy, metaphysics, and stuff like that. But I am not into dark arts at all. I never have been, never talked about that, never posted about it. Yet here it was, I'm being accused of it. Okay. There were so many things that were awry with this story. First of all, why would I curse people that I don't know? How could I do voodoo if I'm not even aware of how, or have a desire to do voodoo? Why would I, cast a spell on somebody when I don't believe in spell work? So, these things really just didn't make sense to me. But, nevertheless, I answered any questions to the best of my ability. And I really did try to be, empathetic to what was being presented to me, because I don't want anybody to feel like I'm just brushing them off and dismissing them or whatever, like they don't matter, like their feelings aren't valid and stuff. So, I really did have my heart open to receive whatever it was that God wanted to reveal to me. But I told her that I would have to pray about that because, I've been doing my business. At that point, it had been 8 years. Now it's been 10. But at that point, I had been doing my business for 8 years. I had clients in 46 states, 15 countries, and I had never, ever, not once heard anything even close to this before. Never. So, I wanted to pray about it and see what God said, right? I'm human, we all can make mistakes and stuff like that. And so, in that prayer, he showed me, or during that time, I won't say just in that prayer, because there were several prayers and it was over a long period of time. This whole saga lasted about 2 years or so, before it kind of like closed up. And even though it closed up on me and my family's end. There was never really any closure or resolution from the other side. Okay. Which is fine. That's cool. Sometimes you just got to make peace with a thing. All right. And so I think that that's what this topic is all about with, strength and character, because there's nothing more troubling than having your character attacked, than having your name slandered and defamed and stuff like that, especially for something that is so totally opposite of who you are as a person. Okay. Yeah, I could have got big mad and I could have started arguing back and forth and doing all the things and trying to plead my case and stuff like that. However, I have been dealing with people that are set up like this my entire life. So I already knew it didn't matter what I said. They were still going to say what they were saying because that's what they wanted to believe about me. And that's what they wanted everybody else to believe about me too. And so then if they did all of that, then there's no reason for this guy to be trying to pursue me anymore, because why would you want to pursue such a heathen demonic witch lady? Okay. So if they could convince enough people to believe that this was true, then, and not even convince them that it's true, but just make it seem like I'm questionable. Okay. If they could even create the illusion that I was just a questionable person as far as my character and stuff like that, then that's all they would have to do, because they know how other people are. And they know that other people are gonna, fall in line, and they're gonna try to just, keep the peace and maintain the status quo and different things like that. And, people care about how they're seen and how what people think about them and whatever. So they knew that all they had to do was create a little doubt, and, that would be it. Right. And honestly, it seemed like they wanted more than that. Like that wasn't enough, because there were just so many things that happened that were just so over the top. Like, by the end, I was being called in by, leadership and basically interrogated about my business, about my pseudonym that I used to have, about, different terms like chakras or whatever, that I may have mentioned in Facebook posts here and there. So obviously there was some cyber stalking going on, people combing through my Facebook pages for, through several years of content, plucking different things, like cherry picking different things and putting them together and, coming at me as if I'm this whole other person. Okay. So in that moment, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is so awful, right? I'm laughing now, but I'm not really laughing at it. It was just like, it was just so much to go through at the time, right? And it was so, there was a lot of gaslighting and manipulation and triangulation, and there was just so much messy, okay? And it was like, they were texting my mom. Well, one of them was texting my mom for days in a row, big long things. They gave me a very long letter trying to detail all the things that they had a problem with. But it wasn't even just that. They were coming for everything. Like every time I look up, talking about here at church, every time I look up, here you there, you're there. Like if you're accusing me of being a dark witch, why would you be upset that I'm at church doing stuff? Every time you look up, I'm here at church doing stuff, and now that bothers you. But you just accused me of being a dark witch and putting voodoo on your friends that I never met. So, it just, for me, going through the experience was very difficult because nobody knows my relationship with God like God. I know it and God knows it. And when I pray and when I meditate, He knows that I'm talking to Him. When I pray and ask for the Spirit to fill me and pour out of me and use me as His vessel and so on, He knows what I'm praying. The Spirit of God knows what I'm praying, knows what's in my heart. I'm from that experience, and even before that experience, and even after this experience, I still have always asked God, search my heart, make things plain, make certain things make sense. Like, I always pray like that, right? And I don't just pray, I also sit there in silence and let Him speak to me. And then I'm obedient with what He leads me to do. Okay. Which was the main problem, because I could not explain to them how the Spirit led me to do anything, because they have, a different perspective of the Holy Spirit. Okay. So, I've always had spiritual gifts my entire life. And then after I got baptized by the Holy Spirit, meaning I asked for the Holy Spirit to come into my life and make His presence known, because there's a Trinity. There's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is an active personage type of energy. Okay. So I've talked about that in previous episodes. I don't want to go too heavy into that, but basically, I knew what me and the Holy Spirit had going on, and for me to try to explain that to them when they don't really see the Holy Spirit or spiritual gifts or any of that in the same way that I do, it was like, it didn't even make sense for me to try to do that. It made more sense for me to just let God have it. So I prayed and I let it go. And I asked God, you take it, do whatever you want. Okay. And I was willing to do whatever it was that He needed me to do, whether that be stay there for, throughout this 2-year experience, or whether that be to leave the church like I eventually did. Okay. Now, my family and I eventually left the church. My parents left before I did, because I was really trying to make stuff work. I was really trying to stick it out, and I wasn't necessarily trying to convince them of who I was. Like, I wasn't going above and beyond, like, doing extra service and stuff like that to try to prove my point, or scheduling meetings with people, or texting or emailing or writing letters. I wasn't doing none of that. I was literally just praying and, letting God tell me what to do from one week to the next. Some days He would tell me to stay home. Some days He would tell me to go. If I went and I was uncomfortable, I would pray and, just ask Him to guide me and direct my steps or whatever as I was there and all of that. And the whole time He was revealing things to me in the Spirit, because that's just how God works. Okay. So after we left and we went to a new church, the church that we ended up going to, my father was the one that decided that that's where we would be going. And you know what? I could not have chosen a better church home for us, for all of us. Okay. The youth department and the way that they prepare the young people to be leaders and, servers and doers of the word and led by the Holy Spirit. The way that, everyone in the congregation believes the same thing that we believe as a family in the whole Trinity, including the Holy Spirit, the personhood of the Holy Spirit, and the spiritual gifts and everything that come along with the Holy Spirit, the baptism of the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, laying hands, like all the things that we subscribe to as a family concerning the Holy Spirit and living a spirit-led life. Okay. I probably said spirit like 87 times right there. But anyways, this church is like the whole congregation gets me. I don't have to do all the extra stuff to try to make it make sense for them. Okay. Even the jewelry that I make, they get that too. Okay. Because to them, they view it as the same way that I do. God made all things on the earth to be used for resources to help us. So, in this day and age, we talk a lot about holistic healing. And it's like we don't realize that God also created minerals. God also created, gemstones and different things. And as long as we aren't putting our faith in an object, as long as we're not putting our faith in anything other than God, then we're doing what he asked us to do. He told us to take dominion over the earth. Okay. If you use aloe on a burn, are you worshiping the aloe plant, or are you just using the aloe plant for what it's meant for, its intended purpose as a natural resource? Okay. So, that's kind of where, crystals, gemstones, whatever you want to call them, minerals, all those things kind of fall into play for whatever reason. And probably because humans have a tendency to pervert lots of things. We don't see rocks. It's like everything is cool. We can see oils. We can use oils. We can, burn incense, we can, we can use different plants and herbs and things like that to heal our body and stuff. But when it comes to rocks or minerals, all of a sudden it's demonic. I don't understand how that's possible when God created, because God said that everything he created was good. What makes it bad is the perversion that people put on it. Okay. When people try to use things in a way that is not intended to be used. If you are, putting your faith in your jewelry instead of your faith in God. Okay. So to say that, I cause car accidents or people to go to the hospital, and, these are people that I have never even met in real life. Okay. So, to cause strangers to go to the hospital or get in car accidents because I made them a bracelet, to me, sounded kind of out there. Okay. Because one, I believe that you have to have, I don't subscribe to spell work or anything like that, but I believe that you have to have some type of intent. You have to have some kind of malicious intent in order to put some kind of havoc in somebody's life. There's no reason to do that if you don't know somebody. If you've never met them in physical life, there's no reason to do that. Okay. And even if you did do that, if that person has faith in God, then a curse without cause cannot land. Okay. So whether somebody trying to do spell work on me or whatever, like a curse without cause cannot land. If I'm trying to live and walk in love and I'm trying to do everything, the way that God is leading me to do it, led by his spirit, there's no cause for the curse to land on me. Right. And so as far as other people, if I don't have a reason to curse someone, there is no cause for the curse to land. Okay. So none of that was like resonating for me. Right. And it felt like what they wanted me to do was, just say, some type of, psychic or fortune teller or sorcerer or whatever. And that is not it at all. That's not what I'm about at all. I am spirit led, and sometimes the Holy Spirit will lead me to do prophetic acts. Okay. A prophetic act is led by the Holy Spirit, and then afterwards you find out, he may lead you to the different resources or information to understand what just took place. But it's not something that you seek to do out of your own desires and then try to find the strategy or whatever, like in a book or something like that, to just recite and repeat and then hope that you can bring to fruition and manifest because that's what you want. Okay. So I say all of this to say that was the most difficult 2 years I have ever encountered in terms of friendship and stuff like that. It was, disheartening at the beginning because, like I said, this guy, I had known him my whole life. I could see how, we fit together and things just flowed together. Everything was literally so cool and smooth and everything, except for this one little piece with this this lady who was interested in him, right? Former friend. So, that was the only piece that was a little bit out of place. But other than that, everything was on point. So, I was excited about it. As far as my friends, like I said, the friend that where we raised our kids together and different things like that, I thought we would be friends forever. I really did, and I was so excited about the things that I was active with my church and all of that. But I was willing to just settle for that, to be honest. I was willing to settle for that type of life where, I don't feel all the way excited about everything, but it feels like stuff is relatively comfortable and I can make it work. Even if that means like I'm not going to get everything I need to get out of church because I got to allow the Holy Spirit to still guide me and teach me, because certain things they're just not going to teach at this congregation. I was willing to be okay with that and just, deal with it. Right. But, God had other plans. Okay. And I never could have imagined that I would be in a church home that fits so much better with a large congregation that actually, values me for who I am and how he created me to be. And I'm so grateful for that. Okay. So whatever you're going through, if you're going through a hard time, just know that there is something better on the other side of this, regardless of how it feels. Nothing works against you because all things, work together for your good. Okay. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. The key is to be in alignment with his will. I did have to readjust some things just so that I could obviously be a Christian lady that's not about spell work or witchcraft. Okay. So I dropped my pseudonym. I edited my website just to make it all the way plain and obvious that I am Christian, that I don't do spell work or voodoo or anything like that. And, God was pushing me to create this podcast. So eventually I started speaking about everything. I had no intentions of sharing any of this, but this seems to be the thing that he wants me to talk about. And I can only, guess, because I really don't know why, but I can only just guess that it may be because other people might be feeling the same way that I felt before, or may not really know how to reconcile their religion with their spirituality meaning their personal relationship with God as led by his Holy Spirit. Okay, so I hope that this longer message, I was not planning on having this be a long, I hope you got a long commute, but anyway, I hope this was helpful for you. Okay, whatever it is, you can do it for now. Whatever that struggle might be, just get through it for now. Pray that God, pray for God to lead you and guide you every step of the way. The episode right before this is called Stillness, and I teach you exactly how to tap in throughout your workday. So if you have not watched or listened to that episode, I suggest that you go back and check that one out as well whenever you get a chance, and it will show you exactly how to put these things into action. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't let nothing break you. Just pause, take a minute, pray, be still, listen, and obey. All right. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening and watching.